Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the second part of lesson number two, still computer concepts. So today we are going to talk about, a lot about computer, okay? Or sometimes we are being asked if you fell on a BSIT or BSIS or any computing course, we might encounter this question: what is a computer, or what really is a computer, right? So today we're going to learn a lot of things about computer and its components. Okay, so let us start. So a computer is a machine or a device that performs processes, calculations, and operations based on instructions provided by a software or hardware program. It is designed to execute applications and provide a variety of solutions by combining integrated hardware and software components. The previous video, um, the part one of computer concepts, we talk about what are the components of a computer, and basically you have already heard about software and hardware. But here we are going to go, deep into learning what really is a computer. So based on the statement, it is a certain device. Okay, so it's not just limited with, a computer where you can see like a monitor or a keyboard or a mouse, right? Okay, it's not just limited with that. As long as it is a device that can perform processes, sets of processes, calculations, could be arithmetic, and operations. Okay, now let's talk about what is a software. Now, a software is a program that enables a computer to perform a specific task as opposed to the physical components of the system, hardware. So, most IT people or IS people know that software is the tangible part of the computer. So, when you say tangible, something that you cannot touch, right? And then on the other hand, you have the hardware. So when you say hardware is the tangible part of the computer, meaning something that you can hold, something that you can touch, right? So some examples of software includes operating system. Operating system, by the way, is a system software, but still it is a software. You have desktop applications, right? You have games, right? You have antivirus, and you have video player, and a lot more. Okay. Um, Now let us talk about what is a hardware. Now, a computer hardware is the collection of all parts that you can physically touch, right? Something that you can see and something that you can touch, right? So we have actually, I guess you're very much familiar with this example. This is, I guess this is a board, right? They are all tapped in together. Yeah, this one is a mouse, right? A wireless mouse. This is also hardware because I can touch it, right? Now, let's learn about some basic PC or personal computer components, okay? Now, let us start with the motherboard. The motherboard is the core of the system. It really is the PC, or it is really the personal computer. Everything else is connected to it, and it controls everything in the system. It's like the central warehouse to where, every peripherals or every parts of the computer, the hardware part is connected to it. The keyboard, the mouse, the cord, the VGA cord from the monitor, power cable, and a lot, right? So we call it the motherboard is because if you try to think, right, a mother does a lot of responsibilities, right? I mean, a mother can multitask. So that is the reason why this part right here is called motherboard, because it does all the tasks for the most part of the computer. Okay, and I bet you have seen how a motherboard looks like. That is how a motherboard board looks like. Okay, Now, next, let's talk about this one, the processor. Okay. Now, most of us know this is Central Processing Unit or CPU. Okay. Now, the processor is often thought as of the engine of the computer. It is also called the Central Processing Unit, which means, okay, from the world itself, um, processes are being done here on that tiny little part. So when you get into an internet cafe and then you see that box, that is not a central processing unit. That is not a CPU because um, just like how we grew up, we sometimes call it a CPU, but it's not. The thing that you commonly see in an internet cafe, that box to where you can, see all the parts or the motherboard, also the CPU, we call that a system unit. But the CPU is like a small piece of square thing box with little pins, a lot of pins on the back of it. Okay. Now, when you do processes, transactions, calculations, it all is being done here on the CPU. Now, let's talk about here RAM. On the previous video, we talked about RAM as one of the primary storages. Okay. Now, RAM stands for random access. So that's random dash access memory. Okay. Now, the system memory is often called RAM or random access memory for this is the primary memory which holds all the programs and data the processor is using at a given time. So, for example, if if you're trying to play a game um, on your desktop computer, right? For example, of course, the one who does the execution of the system or the game is the central processing unit. However, okay, that certain process that's being processed by the CPU is stored on the random access memory. Okay, it is like this guy is the guy who remembers what is other process that it is that's being done at a given time. Okay, so sir, question: what if we don't install RAM or random access memory on a computer? So basically, first thing that you might encounter is the PC or the laptop won't turn on. Okay, because the moment that you push or you hit the power button, okay, your computer will basically look for the operating system. Now, CPU will look for or will do the execution part of you know um, initiating the operating system. The problem is where do you store that process? So that's the reason why RAM is important. Now, when it comes to RAM, we have a lot of classifications or types of RAM. We have, the most recent one, we have the DDR4 as of today. Okay. RAM comes with different sizes. You have DDR4, you have DDR3, DDR2. It depends what the model and the type is of your computer. Okay, so there are actually a lot of ways for you to know what specific model or type of RAM your computer is compatible with. Okay, now let's move on. Let's talk about the case. We call it the case, or we call it the system unit too. But for the sake of this class, we call it the case. Now, the case is the frame or the chassis that houses the motherboard. That's one. Power supply, disk drives, hard disk drives, or ROM, that's read-only memory. You have the RAM, right, or random access memory, and other components. It's like this guy is, it's like the house, right, to where you put all parts together. But this guy doesn't really have like an electronic function. It's just, a case for every component that you put to build a system unit. Of course, that includes the motherboard, right? Okay. Now, we have this also. We have this a power supply. Very much from the name itself, what it does is it supplies the power. Okay, supply is what feeds electrical power to every single part in the PC, right? So of course, without this, your computer basically is just useless, right? So power supply that doesn't just come in this form. Of course, it vary depending on what kind of equipment you're using. If you're using a mobile phone, power supply is different. If you're using a laptop, power supply is different. So, um, it actually depends on what kind of device you have. But every device, every computer does have the power supply, right? Now, we also have the hard drive or hard disk drive. Some people say HDD, right? Hard disk drive. Now, the hard disk is the primary archival storage memory for the system. When you say archival, think of the DNSA library, right? That's like our archival storage for our books, right? Books, learning materials, and stuff like that, right? So here, when we say hard disk, this is like where we store our office documents like the MS Word file, movies, yeah, the songs, videos, and a lot, right? Files um, we store it on the hard disk or hard disk drive. And hard disk drive or an HDD is also a very good example of ROM or read only memory, which is entirely different from RAM though. Okay, now let's talk about the CD-ROM and the DVD-ROM, or the compact disc read-only memory, or the digital video disc read-only memory. This thing does the same thing. When you say read-only memory, um, the thing can only read a certain file on it. Now, a CD-ROM is a prepressed optical compact disc which contains data. Now, the name is an acronym which is short for Compact Disc Read-Only Memory. Computers can read CD-ROMs but cannot write to CD-ROMs which are not writable or erasable. Um, you know what, guys? When you have time, can you try to go ahead and get a CD or maybe a DVD, right? So when you try to, you know, um, flip that over and have it faced um, towards the light, you will, basically see this, you know, darkened portion on the CD. Okay, it's not silver, but it's darkened, and it sometimes starts from, or I mean, it always starts from the middle to the outside. Okay, that part right there, that's quite darkened. Okay, that's the data itself being written on the CD. You will know that a certain CD is empty or doesn't have any files on it. It's because the color is silver all the way. You won't see that darkened, purplish light color on it. So that's how you can say that the CD is empty or not. Okay, so let's talk about a keyboard. Okay, now a computer keyboard is a typewriter style device which uses an arrangement of buttons or keys to act as mechanical levers or electronic switches. Following the decline of the punch cards, that was before, okay, and paper tape, interaction via teleprinter style keyboards became the main input method for most of the computers, right? But sort question, can we still use the computer without a keyboard? The answer is yes, but okay, it's way too hard. But the answer is yes. For me, prefer to have a keyboard on it. Okay. Now, by the way, I'd like to remind everybody that when we use the keyboard, I actually have the keyboard here. So when you guys use the keyboard, there's like this, two buttons on top of letter F and the letter J. There's like this very small embossed line. Okay, that's the part where you put your 2 point fingers in like this. Okay, so basically this will be A, S, D, and F. So that's how it should look like, and your thumb, your left and right thumb should be, punching the space bar in. Okay, now on the other side, on your right hand, you have J, a K, L, and then the colon. Okay, so this is how, you know, your typical hand setup when using a keyboard should look like. Okay, and I have, if I'm not mistaken, I have sent you a photo of the letter assignment based on the finger. Okay, so for example, my pinky finger on the left should work with one Q A Z and or out button on the left. Okay, so all you just need to do, guys, is to review the photo I have sent you on our group, so you would know, the assignment on each finger. And from now on, I want you to, practice using all of your fingers when using keyboard. Um, you would become more efficient in, typing and writing something special in MS Word. It will be, you know, faster. Okay. So I wish we could have like a practical session so I could, demonstrate how should be done, and also for me to see you, your typing skills. Okay. Now let's talk about the mouse. Now, computer mouse is a handheld pointing device that detects two-dimensional motion relative to a surface. This motion is typically translated into motion of a pointer on a display. You know, the arrow, the white arrow thing on your screen, which allows a smooth control of graphical user interface. So when you say a mouse is a handheld pointing device that detects two-dimensional motion. It is just the up, down, and the left and right. So you can't do nothing aside from that. So when you use your computer, when you use your mouse, you can just do up, down, left, right, or diagonal. Right. So you can't do anything outside that. Okay. And we have wired mouse. Those mouse, just like what the photo shows, a mouse is connected to a wire, or we call it hardwired mouse. We also have a wireless mouse, just like this one. Okay, this works via Bluetooth. So the endpoint of this mouse is connected to the USB port of my laptop, and they are like sending signals via Bluetooth. That's how it works. Okay. Now let's talk about the video card. Now the video card, also called the display card, graphics card, display adapter, or graphics adapter. It comes with a lot of names. Is an expansion card which generates a feed of output images to a display such as a computer monitor. So a monitor is just a monitor and it is an output device. Okay, but the question is, what if you wanted to level up the display so it becomes high definition, high definition, or HD? For example, if you also want to play a game which requires a very good display card, the display card's the one sold responsible in making that display on your screen very smooth, right? So the higher the capacity is, okay, the better. So most power PCs as of today are using I would say very expensive video card. You might see that on some expensive internet cafes. Not really sure if internet cafes are open now, but if a game really is heavy and if it requires good graphics, so basically you need to put in or like upgrade your video card. Okay, so video card, just like RAM. So video card, RAM, and ROM. Okay, these things are pretty much upgradable depending on how much you want to upgrade from it. Okay, now let's talk about the monitor. Yeah, this is the monitor. So a monitor is a computer monitor, is an output device which displays information in pictorial form or pictorial form. The display device in modern monitors is typically a thin film transistor liquid crystal display. We call it TFT LCD, but what we normally know about it is just the LCD, or the liquid crystal display, with LED backlighting having replaced cold cathode fluorescent lamp or CCFL backlighting. Uh, Older monitors use a cathode ray tube, just like what I have mentioned from the previous video. We call it a CRT. Those monitors, it has a very big butt, the back of it, right? We call it CRT, or cathode ray tube. Now, monitors are connected to the computer via VGA. VGA means Video Graphics Array. Okay, video graphics array looks like a black cable with a blue square-like tip on it, right? So we use that to connect the monitor to the motherboard. Okay, so the motherboard can send the display to the monitor. Okay, and that blue cable with the flat, tip with, I guess, 8 pins on it, we call it a VGA cable, or video graphics array cable. Okay, it can also be done via DVI, or a digital visual interface. Um, we can also use HDMI, or high definition multimedia interface. Again, that is high definition multimedia interface. Display port or other proprietary connectors and signals. But now we just normally use either VGA or HDMI. Their main difference is this: VGA only supports video signals, meaning from your motherboard to the monitor, you can just only send video signals. So you cannot, send audio signals on it. So even if your um, file has a sound on it, and you just only use a VGA, okay, you can just only see, but you can't hear anything, right? On the other hand, VGA also only supports standard definition. So when you say standard definition, we sometimes know it like low quality video, right? So basically, the cable itself could not support high definition, which, here comes the HDMI. From the meaning itself, you have high definition multimedia interface. Okay, that cable can support high def signals, or high definition signals. So if your monitor is high def, or maybe your TV is high def, and you're trying to project something on that monitor or your TV, and if it's high def, you should use HDMI. Now, an HDMI cable at the same time can support both audio and video signals, meaning that's one cable for both video and signal. So there's no need for you to use, extra piece of audio cables now. Just one piece of HDMI cable, and you can do both video and audio, both in high definition. Okay? Now, we also have this sound card. So if you have the video card, you also have the sound card, obviously, right? How on earth we could hear something from our PC or laptops if we don't have the sound card? Now, a sound card, also known as an audio card, is an internal expansion card, meaning something can be found on your motherboard. And when you say it's an expansion, it is also part of the motherboard, which part of the expansion slots. Okay. Now, that provides input and output audio signals. So you can do the mic thing, so you can input your voice on it or input some sounds on it, and you can also use that for output through speakers, right? So the sole thing responsible for that is the sound card. Now, the term sound card is also applied to external audio interfaces used to professional audio application, like something on the recording studio. Yeah. Most of the devices there uses, high-end or very expensive sound card. So, the more it's expensive, the better. Just like video card. Okay. Now, let's talk about types of computer. Now, we already talked about supercomputers, so I'm just gonna read it. And the most powerful computers in terms of performance and data processing are supercomputers. Right? These are specialized and task-specific computers used by large organizations. These computers are used for research and exploration purposes like NASA, right? These guys communicate with the satellites outside planet Earth. NASA uses supercomputers for launching space shuttles, controlling them, and for space exploration purpose. You can just imagine that has to be done with a supercomputer, right? Okay, now we also have the mainframe computers. So mainframe computers is the high-ended professional computer system used in large organizations still for dealing with thousands of concurrent users accessing at the same time. Now, a mainframe computer is designed to provide multiple access to the users and is capable of running multiple applications and programs at the same time. So just like what I've said with the previous video, their main differences is that mainframe computer, unlike supercomputer, mainframe does all the applications and processes at the same time, all of them together. Right. Now, thus they perform various tasks collectively. Mainframe computers usually work as servers, just like what we can see on the picture. Right. Very good example of mainframe computers, servers. Now, we also have the mini computer. I guess we have discussed a mini computer on the previous slide. Mini computers are used by small businesses and firms. Mini computers are also called as mid-range computers. Now, these are small machines and can be accommodated on the disk with not as processing and data storage capabilities as supercomputers and mainframes. Now, these computers are not designed for a single user. Okay, so it's totally way too different from personal computer. And individual departments of a large company or organizations use mini computers for specific purposes. Those guys who own big businesses, they yes, certainly use mini computers. For example, a production department can use mini computers for monitoring certain production processes. Sometimes these are big businesses who does, huge manufacturing processes. Okay. We also have microcomputers, so desktop computers, laptops, PDAs, or personal digital assistant, tablets, and smartphones are all types of microcomputers. Now, the microcomputers are widely used and the fastest growing computers. These computers are the cheapest among the other three types of computers. The microcomputers are specially designed for general usage like entertainment, education, and work. But mostly we use it for easy communication, right? Like it's like a computer on top of our hands, which makes lives easier. Nowadays, microcomputers can be, your means for communication, can be a wallet at the same time, right? So, yep, so let's learn input and output devices. So, an input devices, the devices which are used to give data and instructions to the computer. Okay, there's a reason why it's called input devices. Now, various types of input devices can be used with a computer depending upon the type of data you want to enter in the computer, right? So if you want to enter like numbers, letters, you use keyboard, right? If you want to enter some sort of a specific direction, yeah, you can use mouse. Direction still, you have joystick, light pen, and a lot more. If you wanna, put something into the computer like a video or a photo, you use camera. Camera is an input device too, right? You have scanner, a lot. So let's talk about output devices. So when you say output devices, the devices which are used to display the results or information. Now you can view the output on the monitor. That's one good example. Or you can print it on a piece of paper using a printer. A printer is also an output device. Now, monitor and the printer are commonly used for output devices. What else? You have speakers. What else? Projectors, right? So there are actually a lot of examples for output and input devices. Now here, we can see a lot of devices. Now the devices on the left hand side, these are all input devices. So you have the keyboard, you have the CCTV camera, you have the scanner, you have the joystick controller, you have the mouse, you have a graphic tablet pen or a light pen, and you have a mouse ball and a scanner, a barcode scanner. Now, devices on the right, you have the printers, you have the headset or handset, you have the monitor, you have the speakers, you have the projectors, right? These are examples of output devices, but these devices on the middle, you have the compact disc, you have the flash drive, okay? So guys, by the way, I'd like you to, from now on, stop saying that this is a USB, because USB is it's a bus. It's a part of your computer, but this is more likely, or I would say the right term for this is flash drive. Okay, and like hard drive, this guy, is being inserted on a device in a quick period of time, or basically the point is it doesn't stay, on the computer that long. That's the reason why it's called flash drive. Okay, you also have the camera. Camera is an input and an output device, and also a modem, and also a tablet. Why? Because you can input numbers, text, um, scroll up and down. At the same time, you can see photos, you can hear videos, right? On the flash drive, you can input files, you can retrieve files. So, these devices in the middle can do both. So they're like more of like a hybrid. They can do input and output purposes, right? Thank you. Now, history of the computer. So, how did we get here? So, in 1880, series number Crunching Crisis. So, the computer was born not for entertainment or email, but out of a need to solve serious number crunching crisis. By 1880, the US population had grown so large that it took more than 7 years to tabulate the US census results. The government sought a faster way to get the job done, giving rise to the punch card computers that took up entire rooms. So there's you could imagine there's a lot of people and each of them uses punch cards. So basically, you need to have like a bigger room for the storage of the data, right? In 1801, we have Jacquard's loom. In France, Joseph Marie Jacquard invents a loom that uses punch wooden cards, just like what is shown in the photo, to automatically weave fabric designs. Early computers would use similar punch cards. Now, Joseph Marie Charles was a French weaver and a merchant. He played an important role in the development of the earliest programmable loom, or we call it Jacquard loom, which in turn played an important role in the development of other programmable machines, such as an early version of the digital compiler used by the IBM to develop the modern day computer. IBM, by the way, is one of it's like the grandfather of the computers, right? So, if you guys, by the way, have time, if you can find this movie, the movie is entitled "The Pirates of the Silicon Valley." I urge you to watch that movie. Okay, there you will learn history, about the Windows and Microsoft, about Bill Gates, about the IBM, and a lot more. Okay, now, so we have this analytical engine. It's the world's first computer was actually built. So if you know this guy, it's Charles Babbage. Was an English polymath, a mathematician, a philosopher, inventor, and mechanical engineer. Babbage originated the concept of digital programmable computer. Now he conceives a steam-driven calculating machine that would be able to compute tables of numbers, and this is how it looks like. Okay, it's steam-driven, meaning we need to use steam from a very hot water, right, for this thing to work. Now you have 1890, a punch card system. That's how it looks like. Now Herman Hollerith designs a punch card system to calculate the 1880 census, accomplishing the task just 3 years and saving the government $5 million. Now he establishes a company that would ultimately become IBM. Okay, His invention of the punch card tabulating machine marks the beginning of the era of semi-automatic data processing systems, and his concepts dominated the landscape for nearly a century. So, this concept of data processing, data storage have dominated for about almost, over 10 years, right? Now, you have the Turing machine. Alan Turing presents the notion of universal machine, later called the Turing machine, capable of computing anything that is computable. That was way back with their time. Now, it's capable of computing anything that is computable. The central concept of the modern computer was based on his ideas. Now, the Turing machine, the first ever computer engineered to combat encryption made by the Nazis, Enigma machine. I bet you have heard this term Nazis. If you're a fan of MCU or Marvel Cinematic Universe, you will certainly hear that term Nazis. Okay, there was this combat before, and they need to combat the encryption made by the Nazis. So this device, this machine, was really helpful way back then. Okay, now you also have 1939. That is Hewlett Packard, or we know today as HP, right? Is founded by David Packard and Bill Hewlett in Palo Alto, California. Garage, according to the Computer History Museum. Now, Hewlett Packard Company, or we call it HP, for shortened to Hewlett Packard. It's what HP means, Hewlett Packard. Okay. Now, you also have the Atanasoff. Atanasoff and his graduate student Clifford Barry designed a computer that can solve 29 equations simultaneously. Yeah, this guy's good. Now, this marks the first time a computer is able to store information on its main memory. It's really the first time. So a Tanasoff Barry computer was famous at that moment, right? Now, you have the ENIAC, or the Electronic Numerical Integrator and Calculator. Two University of Pennsylvania professors, John Mosley and Presper Eckert, built the Electronic Numerical Integrator and Calculator we call it ENIAC. Now, considered the grandfather of digital computers, it fills a 20-foot by 40-foot room and has 18 vacuum tubes. The first general purpose computers, its task was to calculate artillery firing tables. You know that artillery firing is used in armies, right? It's some kind of a weapon. So they used the ENIAC before because of war, right? So you have the UNIVAC, or the Universal Automatic Computer. Mosley and Presper Still, these guys leave the University of Pennsylvania and receive funding from Census Bureau to build UNIVAC, the first commercial computer for business and government applications. That was way back 1946. You have 1947, you have Transistor. You have William Shockley, John Bardeen, and Walter Brattain of Bell Laboratories invent the transistor. Now, they discovered how to make an electric switch with solid materials and no need for a vacuum. Now, transistors are tiny switches that can be triggered by electric signals. They are the basic building blocks of microchips and roughly define the difference between electric and electronic device. You can, definitely see that in most electronic devices. If you try just to open the side of it, you'll definitely see transistors. It's a small piece that's attached to the board. Okay. Now, you have 1953, Grace Hopper develops the first computer language, which eventually becomes known as the COBOL. Thomas Johnson Watson Jr., son of IBM CEO Thomas Johnson Watson Sr., conceives the IBM 701 EDPN to help the United Nations keep tabs on Korea during war. You know what? Most computers before, after they evolved from the punch card systems, were used because of war. Okay. Now, in 1954, the Fortran programming language, an acronym for formula translation, is developed by a team of programmers at IBM led by John Backus, according to the University of Michigan. We have the RAMAC, the first hard drive. Okay, the RAMAC held 5 MB of data, and and was as big as two refrigerators, right? It could just only hold 5 MB. As of today, you can have like a flash drive, a 1 terabyte flash drive. So I could not really imagine, bringing this thing all the way to where, wherever I go. It's way too big, way too heavy. And I guess that sums up our discussion for today. I'll be posting the next video, so I hope you have learned something. Feel free to message me if you have any questions. So I'd like to say thank you, and you have a very good day. Goodbye, students.